Hello everyone. Today we are discuss about the if two vertices are given, then how to find the third vertex of the equilateral triangle by using the coordinate axis. This is positive x-axis. The point on positive x-axis is a0. The point on negative x-axis is minus a0. Two vertices are given in an equilateral triangle. The third vertex is lies on y-axis. So the third vertex is 0, root 3a. If you join these points, equilateral triangle is formed. So a0 minus a0, 0 root 3a form an equilateral triangle. Like that, a0 minus a0 are the two vertices of an equilateral triangle. The third vertex is lies on negative y-axis. That point is 0 minus root 3a. If you join these 3 points, a0, 0 minus root 3a and minus a0 are formed an equilateral triangle. So, a0 minus a0, 0 root 3a form an equilateral triangle. Form an equilateral triangle. Like that, a0 minus a0 and 0 minus root 3a form an equilateral triangle. Let us take one example. 2, 0 minus 2, 0 are two vertices of an equilateral triangle. Then find the third vertex of the equilateral triangle. Here 2, 0 minus 2, 0 is given. Means a0 minus a0 is given. The third vertex is 0 root 3a or 0 minus root 3a. So we have to substitute 2 instead of a. So 0 2 root 3 or 0 minus 2 root 3. So 2, 0 minus 2, 0 are the two vertices of an equilateral triangle. Then the third vertex 0 2 root 3 or 0 minus 2 root 3. Next, the second model is if two vertices are given on y-axis, then find the third vertex. So 0 a on positive y-axis, have to take the 0 minus a on negative y-axis. The third vertex of an equilateral triangle is lies on positive x-axis or negative x-axis. We have to take the point third vertex is root 3a 0. If you join these 3 points, equilateral triangle is formed. So 0a, 0 minus a, root 3a 0 form an equilateral triangle. Like that, the third vertex of an equilateral triangle is lies on negative x-axis. So minus root 3a and 0. Here if you join these 3 points, 0a minus root 3a 0 and 0 minus a form an equilateral triangle. So 0a 0 minus a plus or minus root 3a 0 form an equilateral triangle. Form an equilateral triangle. Let us take one example. The two vertices of an equilateral triangle 0 3 and 0 minus 3 are the two vertices of an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle, then the third vertex is yes, 0 3, 0 minus 3 are the two vertices of an equilateral triangle. Then find the third vertex of equilateral triangle. Yes, 0 3, 0 minus 3. 0 minus a are given. Then the third vertex of an equilateral triangle is plus or minus root 3a or 0. Yes, here 3 is given. We have to substitute 3 instead of a. So plus or minus 3 root 3 and 0. The third model is we have take the one vertex of an equilateral triangle on first quadrant AA, on third quadrant minus A minus A. Yes, these two are the two vertices of an equilateral triangle. Then the third vertex is lies on second quadrant. So the point on second quadrant is minus root 3A, root 3A. If you join minus A, AA and minus root 3A form an equilateral triangle. If AA minus A are two vertices of an equilateral triangle, then the third vertex of an equilateral triangle is lies on fourth quadrant. So the point on fourth quadrant is root 3A minus root 3A. If you join minus A and root 3A minus root 3A and AA form an equilateral triangle. So AA minus A plus or minus root 3A minus or plus root 3A form an equilateral triangle. Form an equilateral triangle. Let us take an example 2, 2, minus 2 are two vertices of an equilateral triangle. Then find the third vertex of equilateral triangle. As here AA minus A are given. The third vertex is plus or minus root 3A or minus or plus root 3A. So we have to substitute 2 instead of A. So plus or minus 2 root 3 minus or plus 2 root 3. So 2 minus 2 and plus 2 root 3 minus 2 root 3 are the vertices of an equilateral triangle. Next the second one is 2 minus 2 minus 2 root 3 plus 2 root 3 are the vertices of an equilateral triangle. The fourth model is on if you have take the vertex on second quadrant minus A. Another vertex on fourth quadrant A minus A. Minus A minus A are the two vertices of an equilateral triangle. Then the third vertex is lies on first quadrant or third quadrant. So the first quadrant point is root 3A, root 3A. If you join these three minus A and A minus A, root 3A, root 3A form an equilateral triangle. Like that, minus A minus A are the two vertices of an equilateral triangle. Then the third vertex is lies on third quadrant. The point on the third quadrant is minus root 3A, minus root 3A. If you join these 3 points, form an equilateral triangle. A minus A and minus root 3A, minus root 3A and minus AA form an equilateral triangle. Minus A minus A plus or minus root 3A plus or minus root 3A form an equilateral triangle. Form an equilateral triangle. If minus 2 minus 2 are two vertices of an equilateral triangle, then the third vertex is as minus A minus A plus or minus root 3A plus or minus root 3A form an equilateral triangle. So minus 2 minus 2 are given. So the third vertex is plus or minus root 3A plus or minus root 3A. Substitute 2 instead of A. 2 root 3 plus or minus 2 root 3. Here minus 2 2, 2 minus 2 plus 2 root 3 plus 2 root 3 form an equilateral triangle. Like that, minus 2 2, 2 minus 2 minus 2 root 3 minus 2 root 3 form an equilateral triangle. In an equilateral triangle, at least one vertex is an irrational number. The second point is x1 y1, x2 y2 are the two vertices of an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle then the third vertex is x1 plus x2 by 2 plus or minus root 3 by 2 into y1 minus y2. y1 plus y2 by 2 minus or plus root 3 by 2 into x1 minus x2. Like that, if you ask to given two vertices of an equilateral triangle, we have to find the third vertex.